Hello there, dear friends, and welcome once again to the Relaxed Fantasy Review. Today, we're going to be discussing monsters from the books of D&D. I have some friends here helping me today, my little dragon buddy Duke, and my little kobold friend Meepo. The two of them are going to be assisting me as we discuss the creatures that dungeon masters may consider very difficult challenges against their players. This is a monster list for DMs. This is not to say that this is everything a DM should throw at a player, but if they want something that is incredibly interesting or incredibly challenging, they may consider these some fun additions to the game, and in some cases, a little bit unfair additions to the game. If you're going up against some power gamers who have thrown, amazing level 1 builds at you that are unbeatable by normal means, maybe consider throwing one of these at them to see how they handle it. I've created a top 5 list here today, and we're going to be going over them in a moment. But before we do, I'd like to let you know that the channel Relaxed Fantasy Review has memberships. For just $1 a month, you can support the channel. You get yourself a little badge next to your name, and my undying gratitude, as well as Duke's undying gratitude. Duke would really, really like it if you supported the channel, wouldn't you, buddy? But thank you very much for watching, and thank you for supporting what I do here on YouTube. Now, let's jump into these creatures. Starting off at the beginning, and these are in no particular order, although the last one is a little bit crazy, as we'll get to. But right now we're going to discuss something that is relatively common. You find it in the Monster Manual, and it is the Lemur. The Lemur is a fiend, effectively one of the lowest forms of devil. They have an AC of 7, so they're very easy to hit, a speed of 15 feet, so they're very easy to outrun, and 13 hit points. They do have Devil's Sight, so this allows them to see in magical darkness, and they have an attack which has a +3 to hit and does an average of 1d4 damage. So, they're not particularly strong, but they're not super weak either. The real thing that makes them a challenge is their hellish rejuvenation. If your characters have found themselves trapped in the 9 hells and they have killed a Lemur, unless they kill it either when they're enchanted with the Bless spell, or they sprinkle holy water on its corpse after it dies, Lemurs always come back. They rejuvenate in 1d10 days, making them largely invincible. Now, technically, according to the rules, this only works in the 9 hells, but personally, I like the idea of this happening anywhere. Like Lemur, unless you have the Bless spell, or unless you have access to holy water, Lemurs aren't hard to kill, but they just keep coming back. I could see this as being like a strange devil infestation in a town, where the townspeople aren't having too much trouble killing them, but they just won't stay dead. And so they hire adventurers to try to do the same thing. In any case, they're simple, they're common, and they're a very, very cool way to turn demons and devils into low-level enemies. This list of CR-0 creatures is definitely got some interesting ones in it. The next one here has one of the more weird names out there, the Fragment of Krucklemar. It's a tiny little aberration. Krucklemar must be some kind of eldritch being, but this is a fragment of him. And if you look at the picture, it's just a worm, basically. It is an AC of 13, 10 hit points, and a speed of 10 feet, so it's not particularly tough. But it has 2 very interesting abilities, which make them very, very deadly as support characters. First of all, they have the dodge power, where they can take the dodge action and it gives all attacks against them disadvantage, but it also gives them advantage on all saving throws. So it just makes them very hard to hit. And then they have the psionic rejuvenation power. If they approach a creature and touch it when it has 0 hit points, so this is what they would do when an evil ally is downed. They would go up to it and touch it, and they would immediately restore 10 hit points to it, and there would be this tiny little boom of psychic energy that would do 1d6 damage to all creatures within 10 feet. So this fragment is good at getting downed enemies back up and turning them into little AoE effects. So not something that I'd be worried about fighting if there was just a cluster of them, per se, because they don't really attack, but they don't need to. It's more the fact that when you kill one, they will keep bringing each other back, and that's how they do damage. Plus, they're hard to hit. So, an interesting support creature for the monsters. Now, next on the list is one that we've got that is very, very cool. The Living Demiplane. You can find this creature in Icewind Dale Rise of the Frost Maiden, and it is exactly what it sounds like. It is a demiplane that's alive. It's immune to basically every condition. You can't blind it, deafen it, paralyze it, poison it, stun it. You can't even grapple this thing. It is, for all intents and purposes, a portal or a doorway that just kind of exists. It has to always be adhered to a surface, whether it's a ceiling, a floor, a wall, whatever. And as it does, it moves along at a speed of 30 feet, has 10 AC, 31 hit points. But any creature that starts its turn in the area of the demiplane, because the demiplane can exist on the same surface that a creature's standing on or next to, it can effectively take its form wherever a creature is. And if it does so, the creature has to make a dex save, or they get pulled into the demiplane, which once you're inside, it's just a room. There's no doors, there's no windows, there's no exit. It's just walls, floor, and ceiling. The only way to kill the demiplane is threefold. One, you can attack it from the outside, as long as it doesn't swallow you up. And if you kill it, it disappears. That's pretty easy. You also can, if you get trapped inside the demiplane, you can also attack, but you have to attack the floors or the walls or something like that, which then have an AC of 17 and 50 hit points. And once you destroy a section of the wall or the floor, then the demiplane dies and everyone who's trapped inside gets ejected. And then finally, if you manage somehow to get the demiplane off of a surface so it's free-floating, it dies instantly. So there is a trick to it. But it's one of those very weird puzzles where if it manages to sneak up on the players and it swallows one of them up and the others are trying to fight this weird like shadow while the creature on the inside of the demiplane is just confused as to what they're supposed to do. Like, who would think to attack the wall? It's one of those puzzles that's very interesting to fight and not super deadly per se. It's just a frustrating puzzle for the players to have to overcome. So, that's the Living Demiplane. Now, I must say that the next two I'm going to talk about are not recommendations for you to throw at players unless you're trying to annoy them. These are two insanely powerful creatures. The fact that they're CR-0 is honestly a bit of a joke, and I think it was intended to be as such. These are creatures that were not intended to be fought. They were intended to either be avoided, or run from, or taken prisoner by, or be involved in some kind of puzzle as an unbeatable object. But in any case, the next one on the list is the Stone Giant statue from Storm King's Thunder. This is a CR-0 creature. I want to keep that in mind, okay? It has an AC of 17, 195 hit points, and a speed of 30 feet. It has the abilities Magic Resistance, so it has advantage on all of its saving throws against magic. It has magical weapons, meaning anytime it attacks with a weapon, it does magical damage. And it has immutable form, so it cannot be shape-shifted or polymorphed or anything like that. Now, oddly enough, it doesn't have any listed attacks, so it's a little tricky to talk about because I can't say, oh yeah, it picks up a giant club and hits people with it. Technically, it's not in the stat block, but it says that its weapon attacks do magic damage, so I'm assuming it can attack with weapons. It's really not clear. But the idea that these giant statues can come to life and then like attack people and have resistance and have a ton of hit points, basically making them almost unkillable by a low-level party, is just a weird anomaly in the books, and they are an official D&D monster, so keep an eye out for the stone giant statue if you ever want to put your players up against something that they're, at level 1, probably not going to be able to kill. But speaking of things you're not going to be able to kill, the final one in here is definitely a joke, because there's no way any D&D creator would have made this. Honestly, this creature is a named creature. There's only one of them, and it is in a very strange book. It's in Acquisitions Incorporated, which is a supplemental book that talks about how to make a business in D&D. And inside it, there is this little mini-adventure called Orrery of the Wanderer. And in Orrery of the Wanderer, what you end up finding is a huge CR-0 creature called Onyx. Onyx is a cat. A giant cat, I might have you understand. It is it's a huge creature. It has an AC of 12, 2 hit points, and it has a speed of 400 feet. It is lightning fast, and a 200-foot climb speed, so pretty much no one's going to be able to keep up with this thing. It has a claw attack with a +7 to hit and does 2d10 damage, which makes sense for a cat that's huge-sized. And it does have the keen smell feature, where it has advantage on perception checks that rely on smell, but it has one feature that just makes it weird. It's the feature that's called Dealing with Onyx. You see, Onyx can't be harmed. Even if you manage to go through to beat its AC, or it fails a saving throw against a damaging spell, any damage that Onyx takes just goes straight to 0. So Onyx can't be hurt. Those 2 hit points might as well be an infinite pool, because the feature just says Onyx cannot take damage. Now, if you manage to do a certain amount of damage to Onyx, it then has disadvantage on its attacks, but it doesn't really matter because you can't harm it. So Onyx, if you thought the stone giant statue was unkillable, Onyx is literally unkillable. No party can beat Onyx, doesn't matter how powerful you are. I suppose if you had power word kill, maybe you could kill it, because you're not technically dealing damage, but that's a thing you get at level 17. This is a CR-0 creature. So it's really intended as being just a puzzle for the players. Here's an unkillable creature that can move 400 feet a turn and can hit you reasonably hard for a low-level party. How are you going to deal with it? I don't know. What do you think, Duke? How would we deal with a creature like that? Run from it? Hide from it? Try to stay out of its way? Stun it? I don't know. There's a lot of ways that players could approach this, but the fact that it is an unkillable monster just is an interesting thing. You don't see that really very much. And to see it at CR-0, Onyx is worth a spot on this list, because most people probably don't know he exists because he's hidden away in an obscure book. And yeah, Onyx is just a weird cat. So DMs out there, have a look out for Onyx. Very, very interesting beast in D&D. All of these are interesting beasts, whether you're talking about the living Demiplane, the Lemur, any of them provide a challenge of longevity, or a challenge of puzzle solving, or just a strangely powerful beast that isn't killable, and then you just have to figure out what you're going to do about it. It's a good lesson for your players to learn that not everything is solved by just hitting it really, really, really hard. Tell that to the barbarian, and I don't know what he would do. But yeah, these are the 5 CR-0 creatures that I recommend all DMs consider when they want to throw some very strange monsters into their game. This has been the Relaxed Fantasy Review. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe down below. Have a look for the join button down there, and keep your eyes peeled for more monster reviews coming down the line soon. Have a good one, my friends.